What's up, guys? This is TheKephas. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am here today to sort of give a tour of my user interface. I have made videos in the past, and from time to time I like to update everyone and kind of give a new showcase or walkthrough and walk everyone through my UI as it is. Now, my UI hasn't really changed much in a while, but the reason why I like to make videos like this is because it is probably the question I get asked the most whenever I'm making WoW content. Excuse me there, buddy. Is, you know, my UI, what mods do I use? Am I playing on console? I get a lot of questions like that, and so I thought I'd make a little video here and kind of show you guys the main add-ons that I use and, you know, what I've got set up here. There are two main add-ons and then a handful of other smaller add-ons that kind of help make this work, so I do apologize if I forget anything, but the big question I get asked is, am I playing World of Warcraft on console? And unfortunately, the answer to that is no. If I were, that would be awesome. I definitely think WoW could be played on console. I am a big fan of Final Fantasy XIV, and these two games are very similar, and Final Fantasy XIV is a game that I do play on console. I love being able to play that game with a controller, and because of a controller I am able to thrive and access a lot more of the content, and because of what add-ons allow me to do in World of Warcraft with the controller, I am able to feel a lot more comfortable playing WoW and again access more content that I otherwise might not be able to, because with my vision, you know, I rely a lot on muscle memory, I rely a lot on fewer keyboard, you know, buttons, and just kind of learning combinations, and also not having to follow a cursor too often is a big help as well. It just feels more natural to me to play with the controller. I've played console for most of my life. I love PC gaming too, but I just always have preferred playing with the controller. So the key add-on that allows me to do this is an add-on called ConsolePort, and essentially that is exactly what ConsolePort does. Is it turns World of Warcraft into a game that feels natural when playing with the controller. It has a ton of features that really take the controller support that Blizzard has added to the game that's not really fully featured. You know, it's very bare bones, but they were decent enough to throw that in there, and ConsolePort has taken that and ran with it by making the game feel like a controller game. And it does a really good job. I mean, if I hit start, it opens up this awesome, again, kind of reminds me of Final Fantasy XIV with the menu. I can access all of my panels, and of course I can also hotkey things. Here, we're going to go ahead and open up my ConsolePort menu here, and you can see these are all of my hotkeys right here. It's very similar to the Steam button mapper. Kind of reminds me of that a lot, but there's a lot more you can do here, actually. You have access to even the guide button on the Xbox, the big X button. And you can also use a PlayStation controller, you can use a Switch Pro controller, you can even use a DualSense PS5 controller. I am currently using a Xbox Series S white controller, and it feels great, and Xbox controllers work really well with Blizzard games and with PC games in general, so that's what I'm currently using. But I was actually just recently using the Switch Pro controller, and it worked really well as well. So as you can see here, you can just kind of see how my buttons are laid out. A lot of them are, you know, just very basic and kind of what you would expect, you know, with the face buttons and the D-pad controlling different action bars. And the cool thing is, if I hold down left trigger, you can see how the buttons change when I'm holding down left trigger. If I hold down a right trigger, it's the same thing. The buttons kind of change. And then if I hold down both triggers, once again, things do change. And honestly, there's a lot in here that I could clean up. There's certain things that I don't use as much, and there are just certain setups in here that I probably could clean up a little bit, because like the main feature of, or the main focus, I should say, of my bumpers is left and right mouse button. That's kind of the main purpose of those. So the extra stuff that's added in, I probably could just get rid of, because I don't like having extra things on that. But you could there's a lot you could do here, so you can kind of get an idea for what mine does. There's a lot of other cool things as well. If you go into the options, you can just kind of, like, if you want to use this mod, just take the time to look through it. I will provide profiles for a couple of my mods. ConsolePort is one. The main reason why I will do that is for the bottom left. If you see on my screen, the action bar that I'm using, which is these all the 8 buttons down there, the little circles, that's my action bar. And you can see if I hit left trigger, those change, right trigger, they change, both triggers, they change, and basically they're accessing different buttons on the action bar, and that's how that works. So the idea, of course, is I'm using my face buttons and the D-pad as it shows down there. I'm using those to access different buttons, and when you throw in left trigger, right trigger, both triggers, you have access to a lot of buttons. And of course you can use start, select, the guide button, the right stick, the left stick for other things as well. I use left stick for tab targeting, right stick for jumping, and then again holding down left and right trigger I can access character panel, bag panel, map, you know, all that kind of stuff. So that's the idea there. And so with ConsolePort, I'm basically able to play the entire game with a controller. So even to the point where if I access a menu, like a panel, such as a merchant, like I'm doing here, I can look through the merchant and I can kind of mouse or kind of with the D-pad cursor over whatever I want to buy and then press the proper face button and I can buy in stacks, I can sell from my bags, I'm pretty sure, although I won't lie to you guys, a lot of times I will use the mouse for a lot of that stuff just because it's more convenient. It's very similar to a lot of other, you know, if I'm playing on PC, there are just some things that are easier and feel more natural with the mouse, and sometimes it's just a lot faster for me to switch over to my mouse and kind of do what I need to do, and it works. You know, you can do that. You can easily grab your mouse, do your thing, and then kind of go back to playing with the controller, and the cursor goes away. The neat thing is that ConsolePort is so impressive in that, like, I'm using my left stick to run and walk. If I barely press my left stick forward, I'm walking, and then if I press it all the way, I'm running. So it's even able to detect the analog stick, and it's same with controlling the camera. Basically, it treats it as if it's an action game. When I move the right stick, it controls the camera, and it does do a pretty good job. I can even control the cursor. If I left click, if I hit the left bumper, which is left click, it brings the cursor up, and I can actually use my controller to control the cursor. It does definitely feels a little janky, but it's, you know, there are games that do that. I know, like Diablo 2 on PC, I think did something like that. I think like games like Destiny, you know, you can control your cursor with your right stick, so you do kind of get used to it. But again, it's a lot easier just to switch over to the mouse real quick if I need to do something like that. It may not be the most convenient thing, but you kind of, I mean, I get used to it. So that's how I do certain things. But for the most part, I spend about 80% of my time playing with a controller, which is great for people like me who prefer playing with the controller, and also gives you the opportunity, if you want to sit back on the couch and kind of leisurely play WoW, you can. Certainly great for like questing and stuff like that. But to be honest with you guys, I've been playing with the controller since Burning Crusade, and I could definitely raid this game with a controller. I would have no problem. The only things I think I might have a hard time with are like healing, but I don't really heal in this game anyways. In Final Fantasy I do, but because Final Fantasy has a lot more options with the controller, it enables me to heal, being able to do a lot of really cool things with the controller in that game. So I don't know, this game does have a lot of, or this, I should say, ConsolePort in this game has a lot of features that I haven't fully explored yet. So there are things like that, you know, maybe some options that might allow me to heal, but I haven't really looked into those too well. There's a lot there to really look into, so, you know, understand that with some of these mods my knowledge is limited, but I do take as much advantage as I can from them, and I'm excited to continue to learn more about them, and also very excited and very grateful to the mod authors for what they have done, and also excited to see what they might eventually do in the future. So very big props to the authors of this mod for ConsolePort. It definitely makes the game much more accessible for me, and also way more fun. So I definitely love playing the game with ConsolePort. So basically what you're seeing on my screen is the action bar is ConsolePort, and then everything else that you're seeing, the unit frames, you know, the just everything else, you know, all that stuff is from a mod called ElvUI. And so ElvUI is a massive mod. If I open it up here, you will see this is an incredible mod that basically is a complete user interface overhaul, and it allows me to change unit frames, action bars if I was using them. Of course, I'm using ConsolePorts. I can do things with the bags, buffs, debuffs, you know, I mean, just pretty much every aspect of your UI. ElvUI's got it covered. You can even change fonts, font sizes, nameplates, and I use pretty much everything through ElvUI, and I also use a couple of plugins as well, which we will look at now. I use one called add-on skins, which allows you to sort of put the ElvUI skin over different add-ons, and allows you to do some cool things with some of the panels. And then, of course, Binnick UI, Project Azraloka, Shadow and Light, and Location Plus. All those do unique things. Like with Shadow and Light, the big feature for me is how my character panel looks. There's also a lot of other things that it does. Binnick UI is how I get these portraits to look the way they do, which I really like. Just having that portrait there kind of gives me a little bit more control over the style. I can do a lot of unique things with the what do they call it? Unit frames. That's the word I'm trying to think of. Forgive me. So there's a lot I can do there. And then, of course, Project Azraloka does a couple of neat little things as well. Again, these all do things, some of which I don't even take advantage of, but I use them in my UI. And then Location Plus is probably my favorite. It's what gives me this panel up here, which shows me my location. And then, of course, I've got my gold on the side, and then I've got the time on this side. So, very useful. You can add more panels that give you all kinds of information, much like, Titan panel or a mod like that. And so, basically, if I target myself, you'll see what it's going to look like. So, the target is on the top right, my health is on the bottom left. Initially, what I was kind of going for with the ConsolePort mod, where I wanted to kind of keep things like out of the way, but also somewhere where like everything's kind of together. See, because I'm very nearsighted, so like if you look at my UI and you think I don't think this would work for me, that's okay, because you have to remember that I am visually impaired. My UI is set up based on my needs. I don't like a lot of screen clutter. I like things to be as minimalistic as possible, but I also need information, and I kind of have learned what information I need to access quickly. So there are some things that, like, if right now if I'm looking at my screen, I can't see my health or my target, but that's mostly okay because I rely a lot on the player frame that pops up under my feet when I'm in combat, and also the enemy has nameplates, and so when I'm in combat, those are enough for me to keep track of what's going on. But being able to look up occasionally at my target to see what's going on with a little bit more detail, and then looking down at my action bars and my player frame, pet frame, and all that kind of stuff would be down there as well. I can do that. And so that's kind of the idea. And so what I was going for was sort of like this, like something like you would see in like The Witcher maybe, or in like Elden Ring. Of course, usually the nameplates are in the top, but I just kind of kept everything in the bottom so it's together. So it's kind of meant to kind of mimic, sort of a more modern action type game, where things are minimalist and kind of out of the way. I don't like having things in the center of the screen, so that way when I'm looking at the game, I'm just seeing the world and playing the game. Because like with my action bar, I don't really need to reference it very often. The only time I reference it is when I'm looking, to put things on it, and then I kind of do muscle memory. So that's, a lot of my characters kind of have the same setup in terms of where AoE buttons go, where single target buttons go, where interrupts go. They kind of all follow the same rules when I set up my action bar, and so it kind of helps with the muscle memory, you see. So that way I don't have to look at it too often. And again, that kind of applies to the nameplates, or not nameplates, but the unit frames as well. So if you're wondering, maybe this may not work for you, that's okay, because it's meant for my special needs specifically. And of course, my chat frame I can kind of show and hide, which is a cool feature in ElvUI. You can use a hotkey to show and hide it, which the hotkey I can set with ConsolePort. So I have a hotkey set to where I can show and hide the chat. So that way when I'm not feeling social, I can hide it, and when I am feeling social, I can pop it up and chit chat if I want to. So if I'm in a dungeon or whatever, I can show it. If I'm out in the world questing, minding my own business, I can hide it, so it's very easy to do. I also do the same thing with my DPS meter. To be honest with you guys, though, I might get rid of my DPS meter, because in my experience, I personally like playing the game better when I'm not worried about my DPS meter. And I think that having that, for me personally, takes away from the enjoyment. So just this little caveat, you can definitely add it in with ElvUI, but I personally might be getting rid of it soon. So that's just me, though. So you to each their own. So the other things, like I said, ElvUI can do pretty much everything. One of the neat things about ElvUI is that it's modular, so you can turn off features that you may not like. And two of the features that I'm not as big on are the minimap and the bags. So there are other mods that I feel like do that better for me, things I prefer. So with bags, I have the bags from ElvUI disabled, and I'm using a mod called AdiBags. And this is a really cool mod because, as you can see, it's like a really small window, and it sort of organizes things based on what type of item it is, which is very helpful, kind of keeps things in its own place. That way I'm not constantly searching for things, and it also puts things in bigger stacks, like in terms of like the appearance. So like if you have 200 ore and then you go mine more ore, it'll make it look as if it's one stack. Now it's not one stack, but it'll look like it. As you can see, I have 71 open bag slots. Rather than seeing 71 empty bag slots on my screen at once, I'm just seeing one little slot that says the number 71 next to it. And that's what I love most about AdiBags. It keeps things organized, and for me, not getting a whole lot of information at once, not getting a lot of screen noise, is very helpful, and it allows me to easily access my bags. So AdiBags is an incredible mod, and I use it for both retail and for classic, and it's just very helpful. So that's one. And then the other one is the minimap. So people probably wonder where the heck my minimap is. I have it hidden, and again, with a hotkey, you can toggle your minimap. And so when I hit my hotkey, there's my minimap. It kind of pops up right in the middle of my screen. And the thing I've learned about my minimap is I don't use it until I need it, and then I need it to be close, because you have to remember, I have no peripheral vision, and I'm very nearsighted. So I learned that I like having my minimap bigger and in the middle of my screen so that I can see it, and that's why mine is set up this way. I'm using a mod called SexyMap because I like its features and I like how much you can customize it. And so basically what I've learned is, from playing Final Fantasy XIV, that game has a minimap, but it also has a map that is not like a world map like this, but more like a second mini map kind of thing, where you can hit a hotkey, it'll pop up, it'll show you where you are, you can see where your quests are, where you need to go, and then you can hit that hotkey and hide it. And that is a big useful thing that I use in that game a lot. So I went for something similar here. I basically turned the minimap into something like that. So that way, when I'm out in the world and I'm traveling, I see where I'm going and I'm playing my game. And then I want to open that up and see where the quest objective is, or if there's any ore nearby. I can pop that up, glance, figure out where I need to go, and then get rid of it and go where I'm needing to go. And that's kind of how I do it. And I've gotten very used to it. It's a very quick, button tap, pop up, and goes away. And so, like, if you see me playing the game, I'll be popping that up a lot, looking at it, and then getting rid of it, so that way, again, my screen's not cluttered, and I'm not getting a giant mini map in the middle of my screen, and it's not tucked away to the side of the screen where I can never use it. So again, if you're using my UI and you don't like that, you do not have to do that. You could easily just turn it on and move it to wherever you need it to go. It's a very handy mod. You could also just use the ElvUI mod. That's also it's a good like the ElvUI minimap is very nice, but there are just certain features that I prefer from SexyMap, so that's why I use it. So again, same with the bags. I mean, if you want like a one window bag mod, I think the ElvUI one is just fine. So it's entirely up to you what you do, and that's what's cool about those mods. So those are the main mods that I use for my UI. Basically, it's all ConsolePort and ElvUI. ConsolePort for controlling with a controller, and then my action bars, and then ElvUI for pretty much everything else. And then a couple of other little mods here. So you've got again, AdiBags, and then SexyMap. So the other mod that I use to kind of help me feel like I'm playing the game like an action game is a mod called Immersion, and that's where if you talk to an NPC, rather than getting that old school like quest box on the side, this is not the NPC to talk to, I guess. But if I find an NPC that I can talk to, maybe this innkeeper, maybe I can talk to them. Excuse me, can we chit chat? So if I talk to the innkeeper, you can see, so the camera kind of pans over a little bit, and you kind of get this really cool menu. And the cool thing about this menu is that it works with the controller. So with ConsolePort, it kind of has functionality with this mod where I can, hit the D-pad up and down, pick the selection, and if I, hit A, then I'm opening up the shop, or I can bind my Hearthstone here if I want to. So that's also very nice. And then another really cool mod that's very immersive, like Immersion, is a mod called Narcissus. And so if I double tap my character button. And so rather than opening up the normal character pane, I open up this one, and I think this is a really cool character panel system. I love using it. Like, it's just very great. And here's the coolest thing about it is it works with a controller. The mod author for this thing added controller support, and you can use the D-pad to select, you know, the different parts of your armor, click, hit A, and then it'll open up these options where you can, if you have another armor piece, you can equip it, you can add enchants if you have any, gem slots are there if it has a gem slot, and then you just hit B to go back out, and you can actually go through the different pieces of armor and add and adjust your armor as needed. There's also, like, you can hit the right bumper to go over to your sets. If you have sets, you can check out your soul binds, your conduits and covenants and all that stuff if you have any. I don't have any on this character, but that's where they'd be. And then of course if you do Mythic Plus, which again I don't, that's also here. So this is an incredible mod, and the fact that it has controller support just blows my mind. The things that people are doing and how much these are all like different mods, but how they come together to just kind of change up the WoW experience is incredible. And I just think it's crazy how much potential it shows that WoW has for a you know, modern controller style game, and it just blows my mind, and it just makes World of Warcraft such a more fun experience for me personally. So those are the main ones. And then the last one is purely visual, but I do want to mention it, and it's Dynamic Cam. Dynamic Cam is an incredible mod that I've been using since the Action Cam feature came into the game. They added this Action Cam that it was an experimental feature. People loved it, and so they kind of kept it in the game. And Dynamic Cam, much like how ConsolePort runs with the controller setup, Dynamic Cam runs with the Action Cam system and just takes full advantage of it and allows you to do all kinds of cool things with the Dynamic Cam. So I keep my character kind of offset to the left a little bit, and then try to make my UI kind of, you know, go along with that. And then of course if I mount up like this, then it kind of pans out just a little bit, so that way I kind of see more of the screen. And then when I dismount, it kind of goes away. So stuff like that. If I use a Hearthstone, then usually it's not doing it right now for some reason, but usually it'll do like a cool little like pan around the screen. So there's a lot of really cool things that Dynamic Cam will do, and you can alter it. It'll kind of like, if you're in the middle of combat, it will sort of pan focus to the enemy that you're fighting, which some people might like, some people may not. Again, something that I've gotten used to in Final Fantasy, very nice, and allows me to kind of know where I need to look if I'm getting attacked by an enemy, and so I'm not confused. So it's very helpful. Again, and all these things kind of come together to make WoW feel more like an action game, like an, you know, sort of like an action adventure type game, like a game like The Witcher or God of War. You know, especially like if you're playing a warrior, I feel sometimes like I'm playing God of War in a way, and it just all feels really good. And you know, so there are a lot of other cool mods that I use, but those are the main ones that you're seeing. I wish I was playing on a console, but I'm also very excited, and I have a lot of fun setting up these mods. So I will have profiles for ElvUI. If you want to use my profile, it'll be called Adventure Mode. And then if you want to use my ConsolePort setup, I will have a profile that will give you my bindings, and then also it'll give you my action bar. It should work. So there will be paste bin links. You just take the code and import it into the game. I want to get this out of the way now. If you are having issues with the mods, I'm not the tech support. That's something you need to contact the mod authors for. If things are not importing correctly, then I'm not really sure what the issue is there. I use the mods and I share my profile, and that's about as much as I can do for you. So I do want to, you know, politely ask you to not come to me for help in that regard, because there's not much I can do. And also sometimes I get people that like request me to do personalized things for them. You know, again, I politely ask you not to do that, because I'm not going to be able to do that. I just simply don't have the time, and it's just not something that I do. And, you know, also, like, I want to say this, like, you know, a big part of my channel, because I'm a visually impaired player and I share things like this, show people how I play the game and give people ideas, is I like to help people feel empowered. Like, basically, like, if I can do this, anybody can. And so I do like that people like my UI, and I'm glad that people like will use my profiles and use those in their UI. And of course, not everybody likes it, and that's fine too, you know, that's okay. But what I want to encourage people with is to not limit yourself by my creativity and by what I've learned, because there's only a limited amount of knowledge there. You might come up with something that is just as cool, if not cooler, than what I've come up with. So if you like what I have, feel free to use it as a starting point and then see what you can learn and what you can discover about what these mods can do for you, because you may A, have different needs than me, and B, you might have better ideas than me, and I would love to see ideas that other people came up with. So, don't limit yourself to me. Don't depend entirely on my ability to, make videos quickly to kind of help you out or whatever. Like, I try to make videos when I can if I think that, people want to see them, but don't limit yourself by me, and don't depend on me for your ability to enjoy this game in that regard. Again, if I can learn how to use these things and come up with stuff, then I feel like anybody can. So, again, gently, I want to encourage people to feel empowered, because you never know what you might come up with and what you can learn if you are willing to sit down and just look through these mods. And there's a lot of resources out there. There are subreddits devoted entirely to people showing their UIs and coming up with their ideas. In fact, that is one last thing I will say is, I use ElvUI, and part of my design idea was from a mod called Azurite UI. And so if you want a straight up, like, out of the box incredible UI overhaul mod, you should check that mod out. I don't personally use it because it's kind of like, it's very strict. It's not quite as modular as ElvUI. You kind of are stuck with what they've done with it. It's an incredible UI mod by far. Like, if you just want that straight up, like, just have a unique and more modernized action looking UI that looks kind of like mine, then Azurite UI is the mod for you. It's an incredible mod. There's also a Guild Wars 2 UI out there that is incredible. It looks just like you're playing Guild Wars 2, but it's for World of Warcraft. That's another really good, like, UI overhaul mod. So those are two that you can check out that don't require very little setup at all. If you're wanting something like that. But otherwise, if you want to use ElvUI, it has a lot of features. It just takes like some time to get it set up initially, and once you have it set up, then you're good to go. So just don't ever feel like you couldn't do it. It might be overwhelming, or you simply may not want to put the time in to do it. But if I can do it, anybody can. So by all means, don't limit yourself by what me or anybody else does. You might come up with something just as cool. So keep that in mind, and hopefully that'll help you out. So I hope that you guys got something from this video. I hope that it helps you out. Again, feel free to use my profiles. If you think there's a mod out there that I might benefit from, then feel free to let me know about it in the comments below. And if you have a cool UI set up, feel free to share it in the comments below. Share a link to it, and I'll check it out. So otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I again hope it helped you out, and otherwise I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, let me know by clicking that like button, and feel free to share it with your friends so they can enjoy it as well. And if you'd like to see more videos, you can subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to be notified as soon as new videos are posted. You can also follow me on Facebook, and if you'd like, you can support my work on Patreon. Links to all that stuff can be found in the description below. This is TheKephas. Until next time.